Well, hello, and after a little break, it's welcoming back Chris Robertshaw, who has been on other media since I saw you on some UK site the other day doing an interview as well.
That's the UK one, yeah.
You're kind of in demand now. Well. Your views. Yeah, so anyway, today's a big day for you, your group.
Yeah.
It was going to be before I went on holiday, then it got deferred slightly, so it might be bated breath here, but FutureIOM is what we're going to talk about in this programme. Not a political party, though. I mean, that's the first thing it says here on your news brief.
Absolutely. It's not a political party, and it's not going to be, and it will not have candidates. But it's an initiative to try to do its best to influence matters as we run up to the 2026 general election. And there are some very, very serious matters indeed to focus on. The three issues, as far as FutureIOM is concerned, is our diminishing democracy, which is being really impacted. The fact that government is living way beyond its means, and it's predicted to do so for a long time to come. We cannot afford it. And thirdly, you've got the issue of our near incompetence on the issue of high-level strategic thinking and project development work. So these issues aren't intended to be directly policies, but Future Isle of Man is focused on aiming at these three issues and resolving them, and we've given it a huge amount of thought. And what I'd like to start off by saying is that if we go through another election like we've gone through the last 3, 4, goodness knows how many general elections, where the people of the Isle of Man become more disillusioned with the current House and then say, well, next time we'll get it right. Well, that's not going to happen. And it's not going to happen because there's necessarily something wrong with the candidates who stand. It's just that a democracy is now pretty well broken. And so it's perfectly possible to end up with 24 decent constituency MHKs at the next election, and we will still fall down on being able to balance our books on the quality of our democracy and our failure to get high-level strategic thinking sorted out. Because, and this is our point, our government is ill-structured. And what I'd like to do today, if I may, is just touch on all of those three subjects, to outline them, and then perhaps if you're agreeable in the future, dive down into each section separately and in much more detail.
Okay, but some questions come to mind first of all. I mean, you say it's not a political party. These things you laid out are what I call the bleeding obvious. Isn't everyone who's going to be standing will be bringing up these anyway, because it's emotive on all three levels you just mentioned there. But everyone's going to have their own idea about doing it. So how do you bring, or do you not bring people together? I mean, are you asking people to come to you for advice? Are you going to give your advice to these people? Can you give some meat on the bones on that?
Of course.
As your actual, and maybe you want to say who's involved or whatever?
Of course, but I mean, how does a candidate in the election speaking to an individual constituent whose vote they're seeking find themselves in a position where they say, well, if we do this, we can improve our democracy? And what Future Isle of Man wants to do is to engage from now to right up to the general election in all ways possible, through media, through local meetings. I'm happy to talk to anybody who'll listen to me.
Like candidates, potential candidates?
Potential candidates, individuals, groups, all around the island, because we've really got to grip this. If we don't, we're running out of time, Paul. We really are. If we repeat again what we've done in all the recent general elections, what's that phrase? Form of madness is to keep repeating the same thing and expecting a different outcome. Well, we keep repeating these general elections and not making any progress. And what Future Isle of Man has tried to capture is what we need to do at the heart of the government structure to make the things that I've just described work.
Where is the heart of the government? Where is that? Does that lie with MHKs? I mean, we keep hearing that it's the civil service.
No, it doesn't.
Running the Isle of Man.
It doesn't. No, the power of Tynwald and the power of individual MHKs has been weakening significantly now for a significant number of years. Just as the Isle of Man government itself has become ever more bloated and consistently failed to show that it's capable of really high quality strategic thinking. Well, if you put all those three together, we're now being dominated by a bloated governmental organisation that's preoccupied with itself rather than the well-being and future of the Isle of Man. So we want to talk about what a decent future looks like for the generations that follow, not for example, with regard to the Treasury, this dreadful posturing that they're currently doing over this 2% health levy, or whatever they call it. I mean, he's almost the Treasury Minister's almost gaslighting the general public at the moment. He gives and most reasonable people will think, oh, well, the big cost, the thing that's running us into difficulty is health costs. It's the whole of government. And I don't know whether you'd mind if I just gave you a few statistics. In the 5-year period, 2019 to 2024, Isle of Man government payroll expenditure has gone up from 386 million to 550 million, which is an increase of 42%. Okay. So health is a significant part of that, but if you isolate the rest of the costs of government outside of health, the increase in costs of the wage bill for everything other than health has gone up close to 40%. So what the Treasury Minister is trying to persuade the general public of at the moment is that, look, we've really got to get our health right. We've got to spend more money on it, and therefore we need this effectively a tax increase. He's saying nothing about all the other increases. And he's already, remember, he's increased income tax by 1% anyway. So it's going up 3%, which is a significant proportion of the 20% that we started out on. That's dangerous. His conduct prior to the last budget was irresponsible and disingenuous, and I've said this to you before with regard to the way he pronounced that our reserves are safe and don't worry, you're in good hands, when effectively what the government is doing now by overspending every year is spending our children's future pensions, and ultimately significantly eating away on the reserves, with the result that the government is currently pushing the Isle of Man's economy and well-being, future well-being, closer and closer to the edge. And we have to grip this issue absolutely during the next election. Now, as far as the democracy issue is concerned, the ministerial system was introduced in 1986. And it was always, I want to say this quickly because I think I've already said this to you in the past, so forgive the repetition, but it was always understood that the ministerial system was a work in progress and that it would be improved and amended. It never has been. It's the same system as it was in 1986. And the way and I won't bore you with the details of this now, we can go into them in more detail in the future. But the way this functions has resulted in Keys and Tynwald significantly losing its influence. That means its ability to represent the will of the people is significantly diminished in the face of ever-growing power on the part of the departments. If you link that with the situation where each general election, all the electorate can do is vote for an individual to the best of their judgment, but are completely unable to effect the overall broad direction the Isle of Man is taking, that's a very, very diminished democracy. And then as far as the strategic side is concerned, we are failing. And when I say strategic, I'm talking about strategic and major high expensive project works. In that area, you don't need me to reiterate here what's gone wrong over the years that you and I have talked about in so many ways where we've fallen foul of good judgment. But with regard to the strategic side, the world is now, it's moving out of the post-war settlement period into a time of extraordinary turbulence in so many different ways. The debt-driven concerns that exist right across the Western world, the greater increase of war, the impact of AI, the demographic changes. These are all issues which the Isle of Man has to consider how it will impact on us. And therefore we need high-quality strategic thinking brought into the way government works. And at the moment, back to the departments, everything emerges from the departments, and very often the departments, individual departments with this power, are not capable of producing high quality strategic thinking which is of value to the Isle of Man government as a whole. And so we've got these huge threats. We're overspending, our democracy is failing, and we're not planning for the future properly. And these things sit way above the sort of argument that a constituency candidate is going to make at the next election. Because at the constituency level, people are quite rightly concerned about things which directly and immediately impact upon them. And so we could end up with a whole tranche of really good, successful candidates in the next election and still fail on these big issues which I've discussed.
So shouldn't you, instead of being a little advisory group, shouldn't you be a political party looking for people of like-minded thoughts to stand as one to be able to drive through this? Because you're going to have 24 people with their own little views on. There may be some, like agreeing with you on certain things, but other things will be about potholes or, something in their town with dog fouling. That's what we're dealing with on the Isle of Man quite often. People standing on very core local issues to get in.
Of course.
And then they get surrounded by, now we've got to look at the bigger picture.
Okay, well, you've really argued against yourself there.
Probably.
Because if that's what people get elected on,
right,
then they're not going to elect.
They can add that one on, though.
Right, exactly. No, let me stop you there, because that's exactly the point. The task of Future Isle of Man is to encourage as many candidates as possible to grasp these high-level issues, particularly candidates who may very well succeed, who've not stood before. And how can they be expected not only to grasp all the constituency issues, but understand the mechanics of where government is currently going wrong? And I hope that I and others have got something really positive to say to them, because this initiative is not just about this is wrong, that's wrong, and etc. It's about, and this is what we should do. And that's going to be the promotion, if you like. That's what we're going to promote. We're going to promote and encourage people to grasp why things are going wrong and what should be done about it. And people can arrive, and let's hope we do, have a next house where there's a variety of different political opinions, but at the core of it is an understanding that our current bloated government needs to be sorted out. We've got to improve on a continuing basis our democratic process so that the electorate are much more involved, and also for the electorate to trust that the government is capable of decent strategic thinking. Let me just, if I may, refer to the Ireland Global Research report, which came out very, very recently.
This is the company that goes on Facebook and asks people to fill in a form and to give their views on things, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they posed the question. They do the Isle of Man, Jersey, and Guernsey, and they under the subject of views on politics and representation. The question they asked, one of the questions they asked, do you feel you have an influence in decisions made in your island? 61% said no, and 33% said not very much. So we've got 94% of this significant sample saying no. And what percentage felt that they were involved a great deal? None.
None?
None. And 6% thought they had a fair amount. Now, that's how far removed our governmental process, our departmental process, has removed itself from the will of the people. And then, if you refer to another question, another question posed was, how well do the people who have been elected to make decisions in your island represent your views and values? Not at all, 36%. Not very much, 50%. So that's despite the fact that at each election people have done their very best to select the people who they think will most likely represent them. The problem is that once they get in, they're almost drowned by the system that I've described there, and number two, that there's no way of a significant way of continuing to interact with the electorate in a positive way that will change these numbers. And then if you look at the moving on to the overspend side, and I touched on this before, but just a few of the things where costs have increased, which the Treasury Minister doesn't talk about in his endeavour to get taxation increased. The Financial Services Authority, their costs over the 5 years increased by 70%. The Gambling Supervision Commission, their costs increased by 278%.
Right, even though that sector is on the wane.
Yeah, so what I'm saying there is, as quickly as our e-gaming sector is declining, the cost of overseeing it is massively escalating. So is that what the Treasury Minister wants that extra 2% spent on? And isn't it about time, and I've been arguing this for years, that the way to direct additional funding to health is to make the rest of government much more efficient, as well as making sure that health itself is increasingly efficient. And one of my, forgive me, this is a pet subject for me, but the Attorney General's office, the Attorney General's office has increased by 54% over the 5 years, from 4,873,000 to 700.
Sorry, 54% increase in.
Yeah,
but have they taken on new things in there? Then they get a bigger brief or something.
You will always get government saying, well, of course that department has increased its cost because it's got a new responsibility, but that's been taken off somewhere else. And yet overall the costs have gone up 42%. Now that's against a CPI increase of 22%. So the costs of government have increased twice the rate of CPI. Look, Paul, let's be blunt. It's out of control, and we're heading for the exit door as an island if we don't.
I'm going to sound like an old broken record, but isn't it the civil service that we can't get hold of because they are now running the whole operation?
Correct.
As we proved, they don't want whistleblowers. They don't. It's the corruption side of things, as it's been put in the past, that they literally are untouchable. And I looked at the job list in the government departments this week. Fascinating, just fascinating. Some of the sort of titles they've given themselves and jobs. I mean, I don't know if they're replacement people or they're brand new things, but there doesn't seem to be much frontliners in there. Let's put it that way. There are a lot of management jobs being advertised.
You and I are going to have a great time when we come to the subject of how to make the departments efficient and streamlined.
Have you got ideas?
Yes, absolutely. Listen, I haven't come to you today with the idea, these are the three big issues and what on earth can we do about them? I'm coming to you and saying, these are the three issues and this is what Future Isle of Man wants to see happen, and we will discuss it remorselessly from now to the election in the hope that we get the argument home, because I tell you what, we're in real trouble if we don't.
Who's involved in this?
Well, it's a small group, and hopefully in time it'll get bigger as people engage in.
You could put the heads above the parapet. You're going to name names, or is it all a bit?
No, it won't. No, I'll be the lead character. But there's somebody looking, for example, at how referenda should work. There'll be somebody forming a website and making sure that we're on Instagram and things like that. So that we've got as a responsive platform as we can possibly make for as many people as possible. Because
so it's a star chamber, is it?
No.
I mean, you're the face.
It will start.
You're the voice.
It should be.
Shouldn't we know everyone else is involved, or why should it be secretive?
It's not secretive. These people wanting to provide a service don't necessarily want to bring themselves onto the public arena because they're supporting what I'm arguing in public, and therefore the debate should be with me. But for example, on developing an improved democracy, part of it will be the absolute importance of introducing a simple, cost-effective form of referenda. Now, there's a couple of people helping us there with experience in that area, and they're very happy to contribute to that.
When you meet people or groups of it, it'll just be you then. It won't be a group of people. It'll just be you each time as the sort of leader.
For the moment, it'll be me, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a general overview. We're going to obviously hear more, and now he's back, and I'm here. I want to get to.
Okay.
We've got to do some other stuff because the Isle of Man's been going bonkers recently. I mean, the lunatics are running the asylum, or something's going on in so many directions. Their PR is at the all-time low, I think. They cannot get their message across. They're firefighting constantly.
In typical government form, I suppose the diminishing PR is in direct correlation to the increase in cost.
They are, that's right, because the Chief Minister got one, and I mean, they always have. I mean, anyway, we'll do it in another one.
Let me just leave you with one last thought.
Oh, good. I like this.
Yeah.
What's that?
How much government does 84,500 people want or need?
Okay. It's almost a parish in the UK, isn't it? It's a small town, even a big village in numbers. Depends on how you equate it. We are clearly overgoverned, I think.
Massively
and
so.
when you get people who say they can't set up a business here because of the red tape, then we know there's issues. But life goes on, and you're going to be the one. you've got a very interesting.
Well, this is my last gasp, really, because if you recall, I tried to do it as a Minister of Reform on my own, and
10 years ago,
the boys just absolutely didn't like the idea because it disrupted their lovely world. 2, I tried to do it in the following 5 years as a backbencher in the Single Legal Entity Committee and that sort of thing. That didn't resonate. So it's down to the people now of the Isle of Man to decide, do they want an efficient, cost-effective government, or are they, at the next election, or are they willing to drift into ever more dangerous waters under this regime?
My final question, where is the Chief Minister?
What do you mean, where is the Chief Minister?
Is he running the ship? I mean, do we hear anything from these days? Is he?
No.
Besides trips to Liverpool and doing.
No, the Chief Minister is not running the show, and I don't mean this particular one. I mean generally speaking, but we'll be dealing with that.
We'll do another one
when we come to the democratic.
Okay. I should ask about FutureIOM. How do people make contact, and how's it going to work?
We'll be announcing that.
So not yet. Yeah. Okay. Get ready with your questions, and you happy to answer some questions? We get some stuff in.
I hope that people ask me questions. I hope people criticise me because this is really important.
Okay.